Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you. Happy Memorial Day to you. It's a holiday. So I know probably some of you are watching me on some other day. You're probably not with me live, but some of you are. And if you are, extra points. If this were an actual class and I could give you all grades, you get an A plus just for being here with me today. And I know somebody is. So God bless you. Thank you for continuing to just stay consistent and consistently in the word with me. I love you guys so much. Fire team guys, man, you guys are the best. I love you all. Stay with it. Stay with me. Acts chapter 25, verses 1 to 27 for this Memorial Day. Acts chapter 25. This is 10 with Tim. We go verse by verse through the Word of God. We do it Monday through Friday, usually live at 10 o'clock every single day. You can catch the audio podcast on Spotify or anywhere else where you catch audio podcasts. Before I jump in, let me just remind you, it's not for me. It's to help improve these platforms. If you want to see more of this kind of content, if this is the kind of thing you like to see and listen to, then interact with it. Like, follow, subscribe, drop a comment. I know most of you just sort of ghost 10 with Tim. You watch, but you never comment, you never give a thumbs up or anything. Again, it's not about my ego. It's just if you like this kind of content, the way to see more of it is to in some way interact with it. All right. So again, that's just so we make Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, all these places better places and friendlier places for programs like 10 with Tim. So anyway, I just encourage you to interact. It's not for me. I promise you, it's for you. Acts chapter 25 is where we pick up. Festus is the new sheriff in town. He's not really sheriff. He is procurator. He's taking over after Felix. Felix, as I said, was kind of a disaster, kind of a loser. Festus is a little more warmly regarded by history, although he doesn't hold power very long. It's probably at this point like the year 58, 59, and I think that Festus is going to die in 62. So he's not going to be in power very long. And in chapter 25, man, he hasn't even like, unpacked the boxes in his office. He hasn't even put his books in the shelf, or, he hasn't even got his name on the door yet, but already he goes to Jerusalem. Again, he's a procurator of Judea. And so Jerusalem is the main city. It's the cultural center, the religious center. And so it makes perfect sense for Festus to go there first. So, right after the first 3 days, man, he shows up in Jerusalem. He's a good politician. But of course, he is met there by the leaders of the Sanhedrin. They're asking him for a favor. Again, this guy just got here. They can't even bother to say hello. How are you doing? Congratulations on your new office. I mean, all they can say is, hey, would you do us a favor? Would you please send Paul our way? He's a prisoner that Felix left, tied up in the pokey. Would you just send him our way so that we can, give him a fair trial? But all they really want is to kill him along the way. Now, when you read that sounds familiar, because remember that there was those 40, really zealotous Jews who wanted to, we're not going to eat or drink until Paul's dead. And Paul's nephew heard that rumor, and so the tribune saved Paul's life in that case by thwarting that plot. Just this right here, this detail here just shows us now that this is escalated. It's no longer just like 40 extremists. Now we're talking about, this plot to kill Paul is now, all the way up, in the chief power structure. This is the Sanhedrin. And so now we're talking about, a plot that goes very high up in the halls of power. Festus is going to turn around and save Paul's life. He doesn't mean to do it. I don't think he's trying to do anybody any favors at this point, but Paul is under his jurisdiction, and he isn't in Jerusalem. He's going to be back in Caesarea. So he just says, if y'all want to come back with me, I hold court, in Caesarea. If you want to come and bring formal charges, and then you got to come back to Caesarea. You can come make your accusations there. So 8 or 10 days later, he arrives in Caesarea, and sure enough, the Jews come with him. Paul arrives, they all stand around. It's a really intense situation. The idea that they gather around, it's this picture of just physically intimidating. It's an incredible physical and this incredible show of passion and, legal indignation. But at the same time, Paul says, I haven't done anything wrong. Notice in verse 8, I'm not guilty of any crime against the Jewish laws, against the temple, or any Roman laws. Nothing against the Roman government. So again, these seem to be the three charges they're trying to make stick, but none of it sticks. They're not able to present a single shred of evidence because, of course, none of it is true. None of it is true. So Festus says, hey, at this point, you get the idea. Again, he's new. He doesn't necessarily want to, doesn't want to make the Jews mad, especially the Sanhedrin. He's just trying to keep the peace. And so he just says, Paul, hey, why don't we just go back there? Are you willing to go back to Jerusalem with the Jews? And maybe we'll do the trial there. Again, he's just probably thinking, we'll go back to Jerusalem, the religious center. Maybe there's evidence there. Maybe we get closer to the truth, at the scene of the crime, if there was a crime. But at this point, Paul recognizes, no. He recognizes right away that Festus is not going to be a fair arbiter, for the simple reason that Festus is looking to do a favor for the Jews. Paul can see that. Paul knows that, and he knows that he can't win under those circumstances. Let me stop right here. Remember, Luke is writing the book of Acts. Luke wrote the Gospel of Luke. And so I just encourage you to go back to those sections, because that's what I've been doing. Go back to Luke and read the trial of Jesus and look at all of the similarities, because I think Luke intends you to make those connections. The way in which the Romans keep saying, I find no fault in him, he's innocent, I can't find anything he's done wrong, but also this incredible stubborn fear of offending the Jews, this fear that the Jews are somehow going to riot, lose control. And so because of the fear of the Jews, the Roman government never does the right thing in regard to these men on trial. So that's the way, as you recall, Jesus' trial has gone, and now this is the way that Paul's trial is going. The Roman procurators simply can see the truth but aren't willing to tell the truth for fear of the Jews. So Paul says, I'm done with all of you. I'm going to Caesar. I appeal to Caesar. This is what's called the provocatio. The provocatio is a Latin word. The provocatio is the citizen right of all Roman citizens. They can make their appeal, that they can appeal all the way to Caesar. I'm not exactly sure how that works, because this really is one of the primary sources for this citizen right, although it's also mentioned in other sources, but this is one of the main places. The provocatio was the right to appeal, typically after what was perceived to be an unjust verdict. So Paul's, declaration, or his, calling for the provocatio here is a little bit unprecedented, for the simple reason that he's asking for an appeal even before there's a verdict or before there's any condemnation, if you see that. But you get the idea. Festus is like good. I mean, he doesn't say good, but I get the idea. He's just as happy to get Paul out of his hair, He doesn't want to deal with this. He can tell it's a bad situation. Did I mention he's only 3 days, actually now 11, 12 days in office. He still hasn't unpacked his books in his office, and he doesn't want to deal with this. So anyway, on. You're calling for Caesar. To Caesar you shall go. And then a few days later, King Agrippa shows up. King Agrippa, I don't understand how all of this government structure is, but King Agrippa is a Roman appointee, but he is sort of the king of the Jews. His jurisdiction doesn't necessarily overlap. I don't know how any of this works, to be honest, but it's natural for King Agrippa to come and meet the new procurator of Judea. And so, again, it's probably a political meeting, but while he's got him there, Festus says, hey, well, I got this prisoner. And he's talking to King Agrippa and his sister Bernice. If that sounds fishy, his sister, like, what's he traveling with his sister for? That sounds weird. Well, that's because it was weird. They were always accused of being in some sort of, political incestuous relationship. They were brother and sister. It was a rumor that always followed them. And you can see why. I don't know. I can't judge. But anyway, that's what everybody said back in their day. I got this prisoner, that Festus says to them. I got this prisoner left to me by Felix. and the Jews got something against him, but I can't really understand what it might be. He wants to go to Caesar, but I can't send him to Caesar without some explanation of the charges. I can't figure the charges out. And King Agrippa says, well, let me talk to him. Again, perhaps being, a Jewish king, maybe he's going to know something that nobody else can know. So Festus says, good deal. How's tomorrow? Clear your calendar for tomorrow. The end of the chapter here, verses 23 and following, the next day. This is setting up really the climax of Paul's defense in these chapters here. Notice this great pomp. This really is, in many ways, a very elaborate situation. Officers, important people, King Agrippa, of course, Festus, and all of those here. Festus starts out with the introductory remarks. He just basically says, we got this guy that the Jews hate, but for the life of me, I can't figure out what he's done wrong. I can't find anything deserving death, but he wants to go to the emperor, so he's got to go to the emperor. So notice how Festus just sort of subtly blames it on Paul. It's like the dummy, I can't find anything he's done wrong, but now the dummy's appealed to, the emperor. So now he's got to go to the emperor, and I can't send him to the emperor without explaining what he's done wrong. So basically what Festus does here is say, okay, all right, everybody, I need you to help me out. I got a criminal here. Now let's find a crime. It really is a predicament. Because if he were to send this, criminal on appeal to the emperor, and he gets up there and he can't even send a description of the charges, let alone there's no verdict. He can't even send the charges. Chances are he'd lose his job or his life. The emperor doesn't put up with that kind of mess, And so it really is a predicament. We have our criminal. Now let's find the crime. And so Paul is allowed to address Agrippa in chapter 26. Chapter 26 really is remarkable, and we'll pick up right here tomorrow. Chapter 26, verses 1 to 32. Now, if you're watching this late Monday, or if you're watching this early Tuesday, you got some catching up to do, because again, even though Monday, today's a holiday, I'm still just going to keep us right on schedule with wrapping up the book of Acts. So for tomorrow, Tuesday, Acts 26, verses 1 to 32. Listen, if it's your day off today, like it is mine, enjoy this holiday. Enjoy this day that God has made, and spend some time reflecting on those who have made this freedom possible for us, paying the ultimate sacrifice. Jesus, of course, is the best example of one who has no greater love than the one to lay down his life for his friends. So God bless you all. I love you. I'll see you in the morning, Lord willing, 10 o'clock for 10 with Tim. Have a great day.